Hey guys, this is the Smut,
Spice, and Everything Life podcast.
And we're your hosts. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Marie.
And this week we are reviewing Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This was a sweet little palate cleanser, if you will.
Contemporary romance.
After our series of
Emotional distress
period series, decided, we need to do something simple and sweet.
It's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. This is a Valentine's Day fluffy, feel-good story.
It is. And it was very feel-good. Pretty much the whole book except for like one chapter.
I mean, it was slow to get there, but man, when it got there. It got there. Panty ripping, cum staining everywhere.
Clean up the driveway.
Clean up the driveway. Kind of feels.
If you read it, you know.
We'll get there. It's my favorite scene.
First of all, we read Wild Love a few weeks ago, and I just thought Ford was perfect. I thought West was funny, and I liked West. And you said through the whole book, I really need to read the West book. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. And
I had that feeling. There is just something about a dad, a good dad, a sexy, hot, good dad that just makes my penis wet.
In my experience, a lot of times dads aren't up to par. Like, West has involved. West puts his kids first. He gets his kids. Like, he misses them when they're not there. And he does things with them.
Like, they complete
his
everything.
Home.
Yeah. They make his life have meaning.
Yes, and he sees that. And, you see all these fathers who either don't have anything to do with their kids or, don't really care if they get them or not.
You don't really have a lot of stories with a father anyways, when the father is the lead character and the dynamics with his kids are really shown. I think that's what I enjoyed most about it. It was a story about
very
a devoted
father
getting his happily ever after.
The only other book I can think of that comes to mind, if you've read Older by Jennifer Hartman, the dad moves to the same state with his daughter to be more involved with her life, and he goes to their house and they have family dinner. They're very co-parenty. They're really good at it. And that's the only other book I've read with a good involved dad.
A lot of times in most situations, the dad gets the kids every other weekend.
Not throughout the whole week.
Right. And holidays or whatever. To fully see a 50-50 joint custody, full responsibilities. They're with them one week, with the mother the other week, and their life doesn't change, just the location of what home they're sleeping at. But as far as their routine, that really doesn't change.
Just in my eyes, he's perfect.
I still feel like it was an unrealistic love story, but that's besides the point. Everything about her stories are usually very unrealistic.
Yeah, and that's what gets me with these books, just alone. That's the only problem I have with these books. They don't really have any real problems. I mean, she did, I feel like. She was a musician, so getting involved with someone who's in a stable home with kids, and then you leave to go on the road, I get their hesitation.
She's a childhood star. She's been working since she was little, and then she eventually got into music, and then that developed into her career.
And Wes is her biggest fan, so falling in love with your biggest fan or your
that's where
celebrity crush.
That's where it was unrealistic.
Yeah.
For me. I mean, to me, of all things, you are her biggest fan and you just happen to meet her and you happen to be perfect in every freaking way.
That's my only problem with these books. Can we come back down to reality, please? Because I need something I can relate to on a level of reality. But it was still good. So I rated this book 3.5.
Personally, I rated it 4 because this one was more realistic than Wild Love, in my opinion. At least this one, I can see him being a dad. I can see him falling in love. I can see, based off the fact that you have a billionaire best friend who has a recording studio, I can see the possibility of a musician coming to town while recording and a relationship forming that way. I can see that happening in this book.
I could see
based off of the circumstances within the series.
The book itself, the way it was written, the characters, 4 stars. It's just, for me, Even in the way they
Now
met.
the spice, I give it a 4.5. So the book overall is 4, and spice is 4.5.
I'm just like, the way they met, he randomly meets her on the side of the road. Not in Ford's studio where they frequent.
I can see that happening too, because she's a city girl. She's on her way. She's lost in her world, I guess. And she, like stupid city folks do, is like, wow, like, it's a teddy bear. Let me go take a picture of it. And there's babies?
I was like, why would you get out of your car?
Because she's an idiot. Because she's city. And it's like, oh, it's wildlife. I just wanted a picture. I wanted something real. I can see that because stupid people do that all the time. There's how many videos on Facebook going around with people trying to get a picture of a bear or the elks or wolves. It's like, ooh, a wolf. Let me go follow it. So I can see city folks doing that. Country folks, it's like, nope, keep going. It's like, you hear that baby crying in the woods? No, that's a panther. Just keep walking.
So they meet on the side of the road when she is trying to take a picture of a freaking grizzly bear. And was it babies or the mama was there?
She saw the grizzly bear, and then later on she's like, babies.
So he sees her and immediately pulls over. He doesn't know who she is now.
He just says he sees this idiot, pretty much, taking a video of a grizzly bear. Because he doesn't know that there's babies. And she's like, what, 3 feet or something? Like, she's not far. It's like a ditch. They're right over the ditch. So he was just trying to be helpful West and, save a life.
And he realizes who she is. But he doesn't say anything. He's like, not going to be all fanboy right now. I'm going to save her life. And I just was like, this isn't a spicy scene because he, pretty much gets on top of her and covers her. Like, this isn't a spicy scene, but damn, is it hot.
Because finally he convinces her to come towards him, and then she hears the nails of the grizzly bear.
So he saves her. She follows him to Rose Hill Records, and we meet Cherry. I was not expecting her to have a pet bird, but God, I loved this bird throughout the whole book.
I'm not a bird person, y'all, but Cherry makes me want a bird.
She's so funny. They go to the recording studio. She meets Rosie and Ford.
She immediately likes him.
Yeah.
And she's thrown back by the ability that they're just like, we'll figure it out. You can stay with us. And she's like, no. She doesn't understand the nicety and the need to be nice to someone for nothing in return.
Having her stay with them, just like, oh yeah, whatever.
Right.
She could have stayed with them.
But she was just like,
thought nothing of it.
Floored by it,
She didn't want to impose on them. Rosie's like, oh, you can stay in the bunkhouse. And Ford's like,
the death trap.
she is a superstar. You're not gonna put her in the bunkhouse.
She's like, but you just have to lay some more crumbs because my pet mouse lives there. She's like, what?
So she's like, okay, yeah, I'll stay there. Because they didn't have any hotels or anything open in town, which I'm like, I guess it is a tourist town.
It's because of the summer.
She takes him up on the bunkhouse, and she's like, well, I just need to go tell my brother. So they go tell her brother, and West is Rosie's brother, and she's like, I really should have noticed the blue eyes. They look just alike. But West is like, yeah, sure.
He is inside fangirl. He said that, it's fine, whatever.
He takes her off of Rosie's hands. She goes and picks up the kids, and he takes Sky to the bunkhouse. And he's like, I can get you some sheets. He's like, do you need me to put these on for you? And she's like, she has this blank look on her face, and he's like, you do know how to make a bed, don't you? And she's just like, there are plenty of tutorial videos on YouTube for literally everything. I can figure it out.
They had already kind of, not meaning to, teased her about the bear.
She was in defense mode.
But she made a good point. Her whole life she's been famous,
everything's been done.
She's never even had a grilled cheese before.
Because they had a chef. That's so insane.
That she paid for, unknowingly.
I guess her parents didn't have other jobs. They were solely relied on her to provide them income. They
stole her money.
What happens after that?
She meets Ollie.
Oh, that's right. She takes a walk down to the lake. And she sees this kid. She's like, can I sit in line with you?
He doesn't say anything. He just
looks, scoots over.
Nods. And she just is like, well, I don't want to make him uncomfortable. So she just kind of goes with it. And eventually she asks his name. And he says Ollie. Which is a huge thing for him to actually vocalize something. To speak. And so it was just a very relaxing, casual encounter. So she's like, I'm not making the mistake again because she saw his eyes.
Oh, yeah. You must be his kid.
And he comes barging in.
Yeah. And she immediately, sees Emmy's little confidence that she has in wishes that she had that. And I'm like, celebrity and you don't have any confidence?
It makes sense though. She didn't have friends. She never got to go out and do stuff. Like her whole life was controlled.
So
and it was like, you're eating with us. Come on, Dad makes the
we're
best
gonna go have
hamburgers.
dinner. So they go up to the house.
And he said, if I would have known you were coming, I would have worn my fancy apron.
Oh, that's right, because his apron says,
I rub my own
I
meat.
rub my... So she goes in the house with Emmy, and Ollie's like, you can't leave her with that feral child, basically. He's like, no, she's fine. He does go in and, like, check on him, and Emmy's all like, my dad tells me not to do these things, but I do it anyway.
I heard stories about him, and he used to do worse things than this, and he thinks he knows everything, but he doesn't.
But she shatters the glass.
And this is the first time you really see her childhood trauma because
she freezes. She's like, waiting on Wes to explode.
So this is like cautions to Skylar. You know, he's like, it's okay. Everything's okay.
It's just a broken glass. It's fine. He goes and takes Emmy outside.
She's like, it's not Emmy's fault. It's my fault. And he's like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. He sees that Skylar's like frozen.
Puts her arm around his neck.
She actually like
holds on to him. But he sets her down in the grass and he's like, all right, I'm going to clean up his glass. And the whole time she's like just reeling because he never freaked out.
He never screamed. He never hollered. He didn't get mad at her.
I should strive to be that type of...
I'm telling you, this whole book, I'm like, I want to be that.
She has dinner with them. She goes back to the bunkhouse.
So she figures out how to put the sheets on her bed. Emmy pops up at her bunkhouse later on that night. And in Emmy Lou fashion, is 90-0 even at this time. And
she came out to tell her, like, I want you to know that Ollie just doesn't talk to anyone. Feel like, let's go. I'm going to walk you back to the house so that your dad's not worried about you.
Okay.
And so West is standing out on the porch in his undies and nothing else. And Skylar is gawking.
Brain gone.
And she's, I hope that I'm not making this obvious, but I can't rip my eyes away from him. And Emmy's like over here talking and they're just like,
eye banging.
Their eye fucking... West is well aware that
licking my
she
lips.
is exploring that body with her eyes. And she's like, I need your phone number, just in case, you know.
He goes, you done gawking? Or should I flex while I wait for you to pull that phone out and take my number?
I'd be like, no, I'm not done.
Like,
But you also removed the underwear.
Then he says, do you want to take a picture and use it as my contact picture? And she said no. But secretly, I kind of do.
Dead. So she goes back to the bunkhouse and she lays down to go to bed. Cherry's asleep and she cannot fall asleep because she keeps thinking about Scotty the mouse and the potential of that little mouse getting in bed with her and nibbling on her. So she's like, I'm going to go for another walk. I'm going to go see the horses. That's what she wanted to do.
Because he told her she had seen him earlier with the horses, and he was washing one of the horses. And the horse, right after washing and getting brushed, went into the dirt. And she's like, are you not mad about that? Wait, let me tell the horse, hey, Mel.
Don't get dirty. I just washed you.
Yeah. And he said, you know, you can always come down if you want to. And
see the horses anytime you want. So she does. She goes, she's going to go spend some quality time with the horses, and Wes is in there doing the night check, and she's watching him, and he is singing one of her songs. And she doesn't think anything of it at this point. Oh, he's singing one of my songs. Must just be stuck in his head.
Singing it.
Yeah.
Like, word for
belting
word.
It.
Yeah, bellowing it out.
She walks in, and she's like, hey, I heard you belting out that song all the way from the bunkhouse. And he's like, you are so full of shit. And she's like, no, I just couldn't sleep. He's like, why don't you come in here and help me do this night check? She's like, what, me? To help you do this? You can get dirty. You can shower later. And they have a conversation.
It was a comfortable conversation that she's not used to having.
She tells him kind of what happened and why she's there. She just feels very comfortable with him, like she can open up to him. He says something about her working in the barn and her stud earrings. And she's like, oh my God, do you want them? Which I thought was so strange of her to do.
She had not taken them off since they were gifted to her.
They were gifted to her by her boyfriend. Do you want them? And he's like, no. She like takes them off and she like offers them.
She's like, they're from my ex-boyfriend. Well, actually, they're probably from my dad since he paid him to date me. And he's like, what?
What are you talking about?
And he was mortified, and she's just like, you know, joking it off or whatever. And he's like,
my dad,
I'm not laughing at that.
My dad paid my boyfriend to date me.
The checks stopped coming because apparently my parents stole every bit of my money from me, or whatever financial issues. All the years I've worked and trusting in my parents to do right by me, just to find out that I only own a small portion of rights to anything.
Yeah. He's like, that's so fucked up. He tells her to sleep on it, and she tells him a little bit more about her past trauma, and she ends up stepping up to him and kissing him. But he doesn't kiss her back because he feels like he'd be taking advantage of her in this like vulnerable emotional state.
She kisses him for a while before she's like, he's not doing anything.
Like, he's just standing here like still as a statue, and she's embarrassed. Like, okay, I'm so sorry I did this, especially like since you didn't want it. But he's dying. He is dying because he does want it.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to be that person.
Because he is a perfect man. You have a hot celebrity throwing herself at you.
Yeah, and you're not gonna jump on that?
Girl dad with respect for women. And Ollie is super, super smart, but he has selective mutism.
Yeah. You thought he was autistic in the first book.
I don't think that now, but in the first book, they had even said that they wanted to get him tested because his teachers were saying he might be on the spectrum. So that's why I was saying, and he only spoke to him and his ex. So, but now I just think that he's super smart and he's awkward and he didn't know
how to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
I think they finished night check and she goes back to the bunkhouse, right?
Yeah.
Mortified. Bless her.
We forgot to mention that Emmy invited her to her soccer game.
Right, but she was like, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah.
But the next morning, Wes gets up and all his assistant coaches are like, oh, we can't make it. And he's like, damn it, who am I going to get to tie the shoelaces?
Maybe somebody who I saved from a grizzly bear who owes me a favor.
So they jump up and he goes down to the bunkhouse to ask her if she would come and coach this soccer game with him. And she's like, I know nothing about soccer. I can't coach a soccer game. He's like, can you tie shoelaces? And she's like, put off by that comment because she's like, just because I can't make a bed, of course I know how to tie my own shoes.
Like, I was just kidding.
He's like, I didn't mean it that way. I just meant like, come on. Cherry's like,
go away.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
She's like, I don't have any makeup on. I haven't done this. I need to get dressed. And he's like, we're leaving in 5 minutes.
Come on, fancy face. And she's like, okay, Coach Thick Thighs.
There's Cherry. Coach Thick Thighs. Coach Thick Thighs.
Fuck off. Well, she goes to the soccer game.
Can we talk about the orange Skittles? Because she had to bribe that girl.
The girl's like eating something out of the grass, and Wes is like, stop eating shit out of the grass. She's like, I'm not. I'm eating candy. And she's like, oh my God, no. She's like, look here, I have some Skittles for you. You just can't have the orange ones. And she's like, why not? She's like, those are my favorites. So she gives her some Skittles.
The kid's like bluffing her out though, because she's like, if you stop, I have Skittles in my pocket. I will share with you. But you have to stop. And she's like contemplating, like, do I or don't I? And she gets up and then she's like, hands out, like, payment.
Yeah.
Then she says something about orange is my favorite. The color, I like the flavor, I like oranges. I thought it was funny and cute.
I kind of have forgotten about that.
And then Wes comes up and takes all of them and she's like, you even ate the orange! He's like, thanks, I needed that little pick-me-up. She's like, oh.
Yeah, so then she meets Mia, the kid's mom, finally. What do they call the
sparkly turquoise unicorns? That's their soccer team.
Which is hilarious and adorable. And Wes makes everyone hats that have sparkly turquoise unicorns on them.
But anyways,
while she's talking to Mia, she gets smacked in the face with a soccer ball, and it blacks her eyes, and I don't know if I think it makes her nosebleed. Next thing you know, they're sitting at the pub.
Yeah, he takes her out later on.
And he's like, here, put this on your nose.
Because the kids have gone back with their mother at this point, so it's just them two.
I can't be seen like this in public, so they sit outside on the water. And he's like, here, put these. And she's just holding 2 cans of cold,
nasty beer.
Then we meet Doris. I fucking love Doris.
Yes.
West is like, how are you, Doris? And she says, well, pretty good. Got a roof over my head, food in my belly, and a husband with a big dick.
Check, check, and check.
Right. So Doris takes their order and she walks off. She's like, I really need to channel
her
Doris.
Channeling everybody but herself.
Right. She's like, I really need to channel Doris. Simple things are in place and I have a good life. But West is like, well, you got a roof over your head at the bunkhouse.
I'm feeding you right now.
And I have a big dick, but I can't marry you.
And she's like, how big?
And he's like,
she's coming out of the shell. This is not the girl you see on the interview. This is not America's sweetheart that she is portrayed to be.
Yeah.
This girl right here is something else, and he is here for it.
He says, I don't like to talk about it because then people ask to see it, and it just gets weird. And she's like, do you usually show your friends your dick?
Her phone ends up going off.
Somebody takes a picture of her, and the paparazzi posts it. Her dad texts her because he saw the picture.
And he said, well, I'm glad to know where you're at. Don't worry about your nose. I know a great plastic surgeon.
It obviously just really jumps all over her because Wes can see her change. And he's like, you know what? And he chunks it. And honestly, I know it is the best thing he did for her.
It is, but I'm not going to lie. I'd be pissed. And she was. She's like, you're buying me another phone.
Right.
What the do you think you're doing?
She's like panicking. She ends up having a panic attack. This girl has so much trauma that she has panic and anxiety disorder and doesn't know how to handle it. Obviously, she's never been through therapy for it because she doesn't know how to calm herself.
She goes to therapy because she said that's just one more thing for the therapist, for me and my therapist to go over.
Oh, that's right. Maybe she does go to therapy.
You want to know what? It doesn't say this, but her life is being controlled so much. I would not be surprised if her dad doesn't pay her therapist to implant crap in her head. Or to just go along with it. You know what I mean? Because obviously her therapy isn't helping her. She's not coping with anything. She doesn't know any coping mechanisms.
No, that's what I'm saying. She can't cope with
and you're telling me she goes to a therapist?
She has. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And
I forget that she did say that about her therapist. I forgot she said that about her therapist, that she had a therapist. And as someone who suffers with panic disorder and anxiety disorder, I had to go to therapy and learn how to cope with those things. Talk myself down to distract myself. She shows nothing of any knowledge of, and it's sad, honestly.
Nope.
For you to have everything at your hands, but not have
West, and the fact that he's a horse trainer, he implies techniques that he uses on his horses with her.
As she says, nice, you throw my phone in the water and tell me I have crazy eyes. How fucking refreshing. And he says, no fancy face. Those are wild eyes. The eyes of a woman who just chose to fight over flight. Don't smother that. Keep them and you'll come out on top. Trust me. Giving her the confidence that she needs and encouraging her to be as strong as he sees her.
Yeah, the fact that she is in a temper, and instead of gaslighting her like her father would do, he is saying, own it.
Right.
Those eyes, that fight you have, keep it.
Those aren't crazy eyes. Those are wild eyes.
I'm sorry.
So he tells her, "Are you to have 1 week without your phone?" He takes her back to the bunkhouse, and
he's feeling sorry.
He's feeling like an ass. He's walking around outside calling Ford while she's inside going off. Talking to Cherry.
You, coach.
Yeah.
Thick thigh.
And Scotty makes his grand appearance. And she fucking screamed. I was like, girl, that's a mouse. Like, yeah, I'd scream too, but then I'd get over it.
Scream bloody murder.
Yeah.
Like somebody was in her house.
And so, like, as soon as he hangs up with Ford, he hears her screaming because she's walking back down to apologize.
He calls Ford up asking for her email. And then she screams, and he is like, I'm such a fucking idiot. I threw her phone. She's a celebrity. She has no way to contact anybody if something goes wrong. I'm such a freaking idiot. And he's like, booking it to her. And he barges in.
And she's like,
sitting on the counter.
Freaking out. And he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she's like, it's nothing.
He's like, you just screamed like somebody
was murdering you.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me nothing's wrong? She's like, no, it's fine.
And he's looking around. He's seeing her. He's looking at the floor because she's like looking at the floor.
He sees the mouse move.
That's right.
He's looking around and he finally sees the mouse like skirt
He's like,
across.
it's not a big deal. I'll put some traps down.
She's like, no.
It's don't you fucking dare.
It's Rosie's mouse. I told her I wouldn't tell you about it and I just booked it up. And he's like, damn it, Rosie.
He's like, hold on. So you don't even know her. You met her one time.
And you're going to keep
and you're willing to risk and stay in this house that you are petrified of with a mouse just so you don't make my sister mad?
Yeah. And she's like, yeah. So anyway, he's like, tell you what, why don't you come and stay in the guest room and I'll take care of the mouse. She's like, no,
your kids. And he's like, they're not
here. And so she's like, no. You know, she's trying to be independent. And he's all like, I'll let you make this decision on your own. And as he's leaving,
he said, I'll be in the barn doing my nightly checks if you change your mind.
But he goes to leave and then Cherry's like, fuck You cooked it fast.
He just turns and smirks.
And she's like, oh God, Cherry, no.
Shut up, Cherry.
She does end up going to sleep in the guest room.
She goes to the bar. He's there making night check.
So they've got that strong attraction.
Can you blame her?
No,
I can't blame her at all.
She said, I didn't mind it that he walked me back to get Cherry and my stuff from the bunkhouse, and I also didn't mind it that he walked me to the guest room. He wouldn't have walked away from the guest room had it been me, but that's me.
I would have been like, come on!
Right? The next morning when she gets up, Wes isn't around, and Cherry's like, feed me! Feed me! Okay, Cherry, we're gonna go to the bunkhouse and get your food. So she opens the door.
She was not as nice as that.
She goes to the door because somebody's knocking, and she opens the door to this, like, gorgeous girl, and she's like, who are you? And the girl's like, who are you?
Automatically, she was seeing red.
Yeah.
The breed was the girl.
She's like, this is not what it looks like. I'm just sleeping in this guest room.
Yeah.
As a guest.
Sure.
Okay, we're friends.
And Skylar's making it more and more awkward.
Skylar didn't know that he was sleeping with anyone else or seeing anyone else. So she was like...
he told her he didn't say he was currently. He just said that he had
buddies.
Friends with benefits.
Yeah. But she didn't say he did, like, at that current time.
But that night he canceled everything, any future endeavors for a just in case, which of course you don't know that until later.
So Wes comes up and they're like having a conversation, and she's like, I'm just gonna go feed my bird. And then as they're walking away, Cherry's like, fuck you, Coach Dick. I just think it's so funny.
I love how entwined she is with it. She's a very active side character in this.
Yeah.
And I love the changes that even the bird is making. And you find out later that she can fly, but she chooses not to.
They actually make a comment at some point. She tells him that you have to re-clip a bird's wings every so often to keep them from flying. I just never had the heart to do it, and I think she can fly, she just doesn't know how. And he's like, or she doesn't want to. So she goes to feed Cherry, and then she sees that she's got an email from her agent about possible dates. She also sees an email from West, and this is when West starts sending emails like every day.
This was his apology. Breaking news.
West Belmont is sorry for throwing your phone in the wall. So cute. Kind of like little love letters, but not. And then Rosie shows up, and she's like, I'm going to go out with my friend Tabby. I really want you to come join us. And she's like, you know, sounds like something I should do. So she agrees, and she dresses up so hot for this girl.
Black tank bodysuit, black stilettos, and jeans so tight they look like they're painted on. She flat ironed her hair. She's wearing makeup with bright red lipstick.
That her parents would never let her wear.
Yes, her dad said that's not her image. And she walks over.
West sees her, and she's like, do you stare at all your friends like that? And he's like, absolutely not. Just you.
And he said, those eyes. Not her face, not her body, not her boob. Those eyes.
He talks about how gorgeous she is, but he also is obsessed with her eyes, but also her mouth.
Yeah, it says it in, like, he makes it a point not to stare at her body, because he's very aware of it, but he makes it his point not to gawk at her, so he's focused on other aspects, and her eyes are one thing that just draws him to her. And then he's in his tight bowling alley, ball buster, bowling league shirt, and she's, say goodbye. She kisses him on his cheek and leaves a red lip print on his cheek. And Ford comes and picks him up, and the girls, I'm assuming, come and pick her up. Ford freaking trips me out when he says, you look like a teenage girl who got kissed by a Jonas brother. Are you going to swoon, not wash your face for a week? And secretly,
he wants to do that.
He doesn't want to wash his face. And so he reluctantly wipes it off. But Ford's like, next time you just let me know, and I'll make sure that Rosie smacks me on my cheek when we can have matching lip prints. I love it.
I love Ford.
Oh, and the lipstick. Wes makes a comment about the lipstick in her mind. You know what? This might be
my new signature color.
Yeah, I might need to buy stock in this lipstick after the way Wes is looking at me. I'm like, yeah. So they end up going out. The girls end up going out, and then they decide that they're going to go and bowling alley.
Well, first of all, when they go out, I think they go to the pub, and both Tabitha and Skylar are kind of like Debbie Downers. And Rosie's like, okay, you guys gotta spill your guts. Like, what's wrong with you and what's wrong with you?
Right.
And so Skylar's like, well, my parents, she tells them her trauma basically. Then Tabby all of a sudden is just like, my sister died a month ago. And they're like floored. And then my thing was, if you and Rosie are such close friends, like, why didn't you tell her? Why wasn't she invited to the funeral?
Yes, you're really close friends, but she makes a point. I don't think they had a funeral. Her sister was an addict, and she said that she just didn't want to see the sympathy on people's faces, and she didn't want to hear, well, addicts overdose all the time.
And I mean, I get that, but that's your friend.
I agree. They're supposedly supposed to be such good friends. Why wouldn't you? But Tabitha, to me, was one of those people that she doesn't express what goes on in her life. She's a very keeping it to herself, private person, that she's not going to put any kind of burden or stress on anybody else, and she's just going to carry it all.
I guess I just feel like if my sister died, like, my friends would know about it.
Oh, I agree, but
it was just strange to me. That was another, like, kind of unrealistic
well,
thing.
and
that
Tabitha,
I was like,
Erica, to make a good image in the town. When she got on drugs, it kind of went down for Erica. And then Tabitha didn't want to have to deal with the town and the gossip and the judgment and everything else, and I really don't blame her for that.
No, I guess I get that. I don't know. So obviously, Erica has put something in a will or something stating that the kids must go to Tabitha and Reese because,
well, she just said
she's gonna make it hard. She's like, she made it hard because of course she did.
And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, it'll all be fine, because she doesn't even get into it. She just says that Erica made things difficult because they're like, well, how is so-and-so? And she said, I mean, he's fine. He's with his grandparents, her parent, tonight, and I don't want to talk about this anymore. This is my one night, and I just want to have a good time with my friends, and I don't want to think about any of this stuff. So they kind of just drop it, and she's like, well,
we could always go, bother the boys. We could always go shit talk Reese to his face at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
Skylar's like connecting the dots. Wes is going to be there at the bowling alley. He must be on the same bowling team. They go to the bar at the bowling alley.
Which is literally separated by, like, a divider. Women aren't allowed over on the bowling side that one night. And so they see them eventually, right, when they get there?
Yeah. Well, one of the other guys comes up and talks to him. And it's
too
apparent,
tall.
Yeah.
But that's the one that Ford doesn't like.
Yeah.
He calls him Stretch.
It's apparent that they don't like him either, so.
Well, he goes up and he tries to make that cocky comment to Tabitha about, can you still tie a cherry stem with your tongue?
Yeah.
And she said, really, what was that, 10th, 11th grade? And she said, it's sad that you peaked at such a young age. And Reese did not appreciate someone talking bad about Tabitha. And that's the next book. And I can't wait for that one either.
I feel like that one is going to be like a forced marriage type deal.
Yes, I feel like that the kid has to go to a married couple, so he has like a family, a stable or whatever. And I think Reese is obviously his dad or his biological father. I think Reese is the biological father of because he just pops up out of nowhere and he stays at her house. Like, I think that's what I've always thought.
That's a good theory because I wasn't even putting that together, which I don't know.
Because she hates him.
Yeah.
So the only reason why she would even deal with him and let him stay at her house
is if he was the boy's father. That makes sense because I'm like, who's this random guy? Is they all get drunk at the bar and they're like, you suck, Reese, you need some bumpers and blah blah. And Rosie makes them actually bring out the bumpers for her.
And Tabitha's loving it because I think that's what she needed. She needed them not to dwell or ask questions, just kind of rally behind her and let her have a good time.
Yeah.
So I thought that was sweet. And Skylar's just sitting back there loving the dynamic between everybody.
So they get drunk, and Wes has to drive her home. And on the way home, they have this conversation like, why are you and Mia not together? And he says, well, we were good together, but I wasn't everything she wanted. She wanted me, basically. And then he says, she was something about good friends make the best relationships.
And they were never friends.
And she's like, thinking about Rosie and Ford, like, that must be why they're so good together. I'm pretty sure, didn't she think that?
Well, he said something about, yes, however it said, but I remember her comment was, And to think all they really wanted to do was jump each other's bones.
And Wes was like, well,
drunk Skylar is a fun Skylar. Yeah. His ex wanted that life where she comes home to the husband and the husband and her watch sitcoms together and go to bed, and it's a very routine, where Wes still wants adventure. Yeah. He still wants I don't know how to explain that. The goofiness. Like, let's go off somewhere just to do it. And that shows, I think, his ADHD. Like, Wes has ADHD. Yeah. He can't sit still. He's not a sit still kind of person, which you know that and I know that. Both our husbands are ones that they don't sit still. If they're home, they're doing something.
I have a good, like, I'm not going to say 50-50, maybe like 80-20 with him, where most of the time he comes home and we chill at night. I read and he watches TV.
Josh doesn't sit down until it is nighttime. And I'm going to sit down, I'm going to eat, and I'm going to watch TV for a little while before I go to bed. That's the only time he's actually sitting down. Otherwise, he is up, running around, doing something, fixing something, building something.
So anyways, this is also when she tells him that Tabitha told her that Erica died. And he gets so emotional about it. He's thinking, I was that rough kid with her, into drugs, not as hard as she was. And it was apparent like they ran together and had some type of relations at some point.
And he empathizes with her parents because then he's thinking about his kids.
And then his parents, because he could have turned out that way. And the next day, he goes to see his parents. He goes to see Tabitha.
Because she's like, where did you go off to? You weren't here when I woke up. Which that's also a night that she went to bed naked.
She went
in hopes that somebody would come knocking.
Looking, but he's so respectful, like he would not take advantage of her while she was drunk.
Take advantage of me, Wes. Take advantage of me.
Not before there was clear consent that she actually wanted that.
Right.
Not in the state that she was in.
I may have, accidentally forgot to close the door while sleeping naked.
I may have accidentally ventured into his bedroom and into his bed with him. I don't know.
I might have accidentally left the door open and, fell over on my bed and fell asleep.
Naked. I like slow burn because of how much tension builds up. But I'm also like, can you just fuck already?
Yes. The slow burn is so good because, like you said, it builds you up and builds you up. But then it pisses you off and pisses you off. But then when it happens, you're like, oh,
God. It's like, they finally fuck so you can get off.
Or he comes home and she's, where have you been? He gets talking about Erica, and then
he's really in his
feelings. He's like, what do you want to do?
I'm going to go out and I'm going to go canoeing. And she doesn't want him to go off in this state. She doesn't want him to go off and be alone in his emotion he is. And she also just really wants to be around him. So she's
really
can I go with you? And he's like, I would love that. So they go canoeing. They go fishing in the dark.
And when she says, they wrote a song about that, and he's like, we're not fishing.
Yeah.
And she makes a comment saying, well, she's never went fishing, which I thought was cute just for what comes next. Or, what comes later on. I thought that was cute.
So they have this, open, honest conversation, which she holds back a little bit, and you can tell he does too.
She asks him a question, what's your biggest fear? And he does what any parent does.
And he says, my kid's dying.
My kid's dying. And she's like, and then he asks, and she said, well, she's going to dodge the question, so am I.
She dodges, what's your biggest fear? Dodges the question too. So she's like, people finding out my boobs are fake. And he's like, and she's like, I don't know what he's choking on. Hopefully the words, can I see them?
She is so horny for this man.
The confident, I guess if I had fake boobs too, I'd just show anybody.
She said, as much money as I paid for them, they better not look like they're fake. Yeah. Like, they look like they're real. And she said, and you can't be darling for everybody without looking the part. And he said, well, do you like them? And she said, I fucking love them. Yeah. He said, then that's all that matters.
And she's like, but it matters to me what you think. And he's like, oh, well, I fucking love them too. Yeah, you do.
Oh, and then things start getting
touchy. Things get real and she ends up telling him, honestly, I feel fake. Like, my whole life is a lie. I've never been real with anyone. And I'm lonely. And then she felt bad because he's tried several times to get her to do things with him, and she didn't. And she's like, I'm an ass.
He was reaching for someone, and I shut him down because he even made the comment, if I don't go to people, they don't come to me. And that broke my heart because I said it in the first book, too.
That is so sad to me that he's like, if I don't go looking, offer for my friends to hang out with me, like, they don't come.
And I noticed that in the first book, it was never them going to him. It was always him coming to them.
That is so sad.
It is.
I just think about, like, my friends and family, and it's kind of like the same way.
I have that same issue where you have all these friends and they're like, we should get together or whatever, and then you try to make plans with them and nothing ever comes up. Anyway, so they get emotional, they're talking, and then they get physical. She's like, I'm going to do it. I'm sober. She goes for it, and he kisses her back.
Okay, but I like how she like crawls across the boat and like just gently slides her hands up his leg, and he's like, what are you doing?
What is happening?
And she's like,
is this a dream? Is this a dream?
And she's just like, she does my favorite thing. She straddles his lap.
So they start dry humping each other, and things kind of get out of control. And they're in a canoe, y'all. A canoe. I don't know if you know what a canoe is. Google it if you don't. Look at those images of a canoe.
Risky behavior on a canoe.
Yeah. When there's a rocket involved, and they're already kind of like, you've got to be very...
They were rocking the boat.
Literally.
That's for sure. So much so that they flipped that mug.
And instead of letting her fall, because she mentions it, he falls with her.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, duh. They're in a boat.
You're both going under, whatever.
But sure.
So
it was sweet.
She helps him get the boat out, which he wasn't.
Yeah, he was like, go to shore, I've got this. And she's like, no, I can swim. And he's like, I'm glad you know how to swim.
She's like, I want to help you. And he's just like so caught off guard. He's not used to people helping him. So they get out of the lake, and
he is still hot.
He's ready to say, because they both go to start to say something. He's ready to say, fuck what I said. I want you. And she is going to be the adult one with the head on her shoulders. She's like,
because the kids come back.
We need to take a breather. That got really hot and heavy. We've got to just stay friends. And he's like, I'm glad I did it first. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't say what I was going to say, because I probably would have just scared her off.
Right.
They go back to the house and they go to bed, and the next morning, like, the kids come. Ollie's, whose clothes are these?
He didn't make a big deal about it. Like, oh, those are Skylar's. And Ollie's like, okay. That's the end of it. Like, okay, cool. And then later on, I think it was Emmy asked, why were your
clothes here or something?
Yeah.
And she tries to make the excuse of, your dad didn't be using the...
Just like, she stayed here.
Yeah, and she's like,
why are you saying this?
But I'm gonna go back to the bunkhouse. And they're like, no, we want you to stay. And Wes is like, yeah.
And now Wes made it very clear that his kids were his number one priority, that he doesn't
bring girls home around them.
He doesn't introduce them to girls. He doesn't bring them home. His kids do not get involved. He doesn't want to get attacked. So it was a big deal, and she knew it was a big deal. Emmy and Ollie both were like, can we go in the canoe and go fishing?
Or they go canoeing again.
And their face when they're like, can we go fishing and can we go on the canoe? They both lock eyes. And it's like,
yeah,
that moment.
And then they're going to get on the canoe.
And she said, well, there might not be enough room for me. And she says, you can sit on my dad's lap. The canoe never tips over.
Emmy makes her comments, and then when they go back to the house, they all insist that she stays. And then she starts writing her own songs.
Because Emmy convinced her to write when she came. My daddy says never give up.
So she starts writing her own songs after she kind of gets her confidence built up a little bit. And she struggles with it,
What was it, 3 days and nothing?
Yeah, but she goes to sit down on the log, and Oliver comes out there.
They start talking, and he gives her the book about the birds.
Which was so sweet.
And
he bought it with his own allowance.
Which was just like, she talking about how she was having trouble and she's never wrote her own song. And he takes her paper and writes it.
It all started on the back road. He does that a few times. Like, if she has trouble with the next verse, she'll hand it to him and he'll write a line and give it back.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how she writes her songs. And then she spends a ton of time.
Once she starts the flow, she can't stop the flow.
Yeah. She spends a ton of time writing. She spends a ton of time in the studio with Ford.
And remember, her and West goes to the grocery store, and on the way out, she like gets a lyric in her head, and she goes, "I need a piece of paper. I need a piece of paper. If I don't write it down, I'll forget it." And he pulls out a receipt and a pen, and she's like, "My hero." I don't remember the line, but I do remember it's in the song that they played.
That's like one of the only times they've spent any time together is when they went to the grocery store together. But Ollie gives, his gift to her, and
That same night.
she's sitting in her room, and Emmy comes in.
At 11 o'clock at night, she's supposed to be in bed.
And she's bouncing off the walls, as she does, and she's like, "I got something for you," and it's a knife. Just in case you come up upon another grizzly bear.
Daddy told us the story about how y'all met.
And she's been...
We need to talk about bear safety.
Because she's been to camp.
Yes. And she was going all on and on and on at dinner time. And then she didn't say anything about bears. But that night, she's like, "I just didn't want to embarrass you
at dinner.
So I didn't say anything at dinner."
But she also tells her...
Wait, hold on. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm sorry. But I think this is so funny. Because she's like, "I'm not going to get close enough to a grizzly bear to stab them." And she goes, "You stab them in the eye. I'll teach you." Like, Emmy's a little hood.
You go, girl. While she's in her room talking about everything, she tells her, like, "I don't want you to go anywhere. You make my daddy happy." And she's like, "Well, I think it's you guys. You make your daddy happy." "Yeah, but he's happier when you're around." And I'm like, this kid is 6 years old. She is so perceptive.
She said, "My mom has Brandon.
Yeah.
And I know she's not lonely. But I feel like Daddy's lonely when we're not here."
I feel like she knows too much. But she also tells her, "My daddy is your number one fan." And she's like, "Emmy, like, no." She's, "Yes, he is. He has a t-shirt with your face on it. I'll prove it to you." So she goes and gets the t-shirt, and she's like, "Oh my gosh. He didn't tell me he was even a fan. Like, I know I walked in on him, like, singing my song, but I thought it was stuck in his head. But he has a t-shirt with my freaking face on it."
Yep, and she's irritated. She has mixed emotions about it. She's mad, and she's humbled by the fact that he didn't change towards her.
He didn't treat her any differently.
Because she's met fans, and he didn't treat her like a fan.
It was like she was upset that he kept it from her, but she was also kind of like grateful that he treated her like anyone else.
And she makes a comment saying how much she enjoys the banter, because she's not used to the sarcasm and the back and forth between the friends and giving each other a hard time.
So the next morning, he wakes up and he walks in to see Skylar wearing his t-shirt with her face on it, mixing pancakes, and the kids
making breakfast.
Are making breakfast.
I like my shirt.
And he is like so embarrassed, but also like, "Damn, she looks good in my clothes."
He tells her, "I think it looks better on you." And she's like, "Well, damn, that backfired." And she's like, "You're flirting with me or something." And he's like, "So?" Like, he's just said, "Screw it. Forget it. I don't care."
This was the moment he was like, pretending. So they have breakfast, the kids go do something, and they're cleaning up the kitchen, and West...
I've got it. You ready? Yeah. She says something about, "I thought we were taking a breather," or something. Yeah. He said, "Then this fucking breather is over. You can go ahead and breathe through your nose because this mouth will be busy." She flushes, teeth pressing down on her lip. "That's not really what I meant by a breather." And then he says, "Breathing is overrated. I'd rather be drowning in you." And then bang, 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 because the kids are upstairs stomping around so they have to break apart.
Oh, but that scene is so hot.
Oh my gosh, yes. Look, when they said breathing is overrated, yes. Yes, it is.
When he said this mouth will be busy, I was like, "What?"
Because he goes on and he's just, "I'll be a big fan of you in my bed. I'll be a big fan of you here on the kitchen counter. And I'll make a fucking mess of you that I'll be a big fan in the shower too."
And so he does. He does. Not in this moment, but when the kids go home. Because he's like, the week is almost up and the kids are going to go home and we're going to have this whole house to ourselves.
The auction is happening next.
But that's, Amy comes downstairs and she says something about the auction, and then Skylar's like...
This is like, that's that's today. And he's like, the calendar that I have to keep things organized in my life, that is useless because it doesn't keep shit straight. And he's like, but yep, sure as shit, it's right here.
And Skylar's so sad and jealous that he's going to be auctioned off to another woman. And she's like, I can't bid on this man because it's going to blow up in the media.
Emmy is making it sound like it's a slab of meat contest pretty much up there. And he's like, Emmy, it's for charity. She wants money because she put a bet with Ollie saying that West wouldn't go. Third year in a row is the highest auctioned off.
But he does.
Well, they go to the auction. Wes is up there looking fine as always. Bree
starts bidding on him,
which in their town is a lot of money. I think she got up to what, 1,000 or 1,500, and then it was once, twice,
and Skylar was like $10,000,
and the auctioneer was like, I don't think anybody's outbidding this, but sure, 1, 2, sold, and she leaves. Like she pretty much runs and can't find her.
She doesn't have a phone still, and he's like, this is fucking stupid. Why haven't I replaced your phone?
And he thinks about it, and he's going through his head, and he's like, she wouldn't go home. It's not her home, but I just have a feeling that she's home. And sure enough, she's there swinging on the swing.
Ignoring him. Oh, man. Oh, man.
Ooh, hold on, wait. Well, so funny. So they asked how where Reese was, because Reese isn't there, and she's like, no, he's away for work again, and I don't want to auction him off for the day. I want to auction him off forever to a serial killer. Now we can go ahead to back to the swing, because I just thought that was funny. Anyways,
it's the truck action.
Yeah, I know.
My favorite scene. Somebody ravaged me on the top of the truck. I mean,
she doesn't know how. She's got all these feelings, all these emotions, and you're gonna spend $10,000 on me and then run.
Is this like the point where she was like, I mean, we'll get there, but she's like, it takes a long time to get me off, and I'm really hard to get off, don't feel bad if you can't. And he's like, challenge accepted.
Look, when he ripped them panties
and threw them in the gravel.
What is it about panties being ripped off? I guess because I know how strong panties are.
Right? Like, did that hurt?
You have to have some muscles to rip those panties.
Like, if that was a thong, I can imagine that you just, like, ripped my butt crack in half when you were just trying to take those panties and rip them off of me.
The tight woven piece of fabric at the top, along with the elastic band, like, that is hard to rip.
Like, okay, so this, in a book, ripping the panties off, so hot. But I could just, in real life, I feel like as soon as he tried to rip my panties off, the only thing that would happen was he'd give me a wedgie that I'd need surgery to remove. Because I feel like in real life, that just doesn't happen. Same. Unless these are the oldest, most delicate panties you wear. Like, they're just disintegrating.
Same. So
hot in a book. Real life, I feel like fail.
Well, in my mind, if it happens, I'm just thinking the muscles that you must have to be able to do that.
Right? Okay, you better. I feel like for me, it would go bad.
It would definitely go bad for me, but I'm just saying. I mean, heck, sometimes just wearing G-strings and thongs, I'm like, my booty ate it. Like, dang, talk about flossing some crack. Yeah.
You wear them because they go in your butt crack. But when they go too far in your butt crack, you're like, no, that's too much.
So anyways, yeah, so he rips panties off and he proceeds to eat her and devours her like the best sundae he's ever ate.
And she's like, orgasms so quickly. She's like, oh my God, never in my life. And he's like, it's because you've been with boys. You've not been with a man that knows what he's doing.
You want to know why? Because
he's sleeping around so much.
Oh, I wasn't even going to say that. I was going to say because the ones that she was with were paid.
That is a good point.
And not a paid gigolo. Like, these were just paid pretty boys. Because at least a paid gigolo would know what to do.
Yeah.
So how many... Oh, he starts counting. Them. He's like, that's one.
Oh.
And then she's immediately ready again. She's like, this never happened. 5 later.
I can barely... Like, it takes me... Like, after that first one, I'm like, don't touch me. Like, stop. Hey, stop.
Okay, so, They were on the counter. She's on the counter and he's devouring her once again on the counter. And she's like, you have to feed me before you give me another one. I have to eat. And then he starts messing with her and she's like, never mind. I'm not going to die. It's fine. And he's like, oh no, I can't have you die.
Yeah.
And she's like, death by orgasm. That sounds great. It's a great way to die.
But then he makes her a grilled cheese that she's never had before.
And he's like, how have you not had a grilled cheese? And she's like, well, we've had chefs my whole life, and my mother was always on some sort of diet. So
I ate what they made. But then also, he's like, I know you don't like to be treated like porcelain, but can I treat you like porcelain for a little while? And she's like,
yes.
Okay, wait, back up to the truck scene because he's like, hard or soft? And she's like, oh, I don't know. She's thinking, I don't know. I want everything. And she's like, hard. And she barely gets it out. And he's like, and I'm like, Wes is the
everything. He's everything.
Rough with her, and then he goes and gives her a shower. He bathes her, and she's like, how is this somehow more intimate than fucking? And she's like, wait, you're actually going to wash her? And he's like, yeah. Well, this has never happened before.
He washes her, he shampoos her hair, conditions her hair.
Everything.
He brushes her hair, dries her. Like, he treats her like porcelain.
And then they continue to fuck the rest of the night.
I say that he is everything. Like, he is everything that you would want in a husband. I mean, he is a amazing father that treats his kids like they are the world, but then turns around and treats his woman like they are the world and everything. And his protectiveness of his family and her, and oh my gosh, it's just sexy.
Agreed. Especially with his tattoos and his body and his personality.
He's just everything.
Then the next morning, after they fucked all night, Wes parents show up. Greta,
knock, 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 and she answers the door in her shirt, his shirt.
And Greta and Andy are standing there, and she's like, oh my god.
And she's adding, you know, woman, man, age. I'm at his house. They show up randomly.
They look like him. Oh my god.
This is his parents.
These are your parents. I am.
His reaction just comes up and puts his arms around her. And I'm like, this is not just a fling. No. You are staking claim and saying it in front of your parents.
So Greta is like, well, she makes up some weird excuse of why she's there, or why they're there. And Andy's like, we're not here for that. Greta's just being nosy.
He's just mad because we're late for pickleball. And then he's like, why? Something about the time slots. And he's like, well, I'm not old enough. Because she's like, oh yeah, he
got me a fake ID. And she's like, why do you have a fake ID?
West is.
Yeah, West is like, why do you have a fake ID? And she's like, because seniors can go earlier, and I'm not a senior.
I'm only 50,
senior citizen
I'm
yet.
only 55. I'm only 54, and you have to be 56 or something like that.
And so he got me a fake ID so we could get in the earlier
the
slot.
better times, the better slots.
But then they're like, yeah, I was just being nosy, and
when they finally leave.
When we pulled up and we saw the ripped panties and the condom in the driveway, we knew what was going on.
Andy did. He busted out. He's like, you know dang well what's going on here. There's a panty and condom right there in the driveway. And she's like, well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't know.
And then she's like, but West, seriously.
Thanks, Mom. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad.
So now they're spending a lot of time together. She goes out to the arena and watches him train the horses. She's definitely being inspired by West.
And the life there.
And the life there. So they're They go back to put the horses up, and they have this spicy scene in the arena.
Because she goes down to the middle of the arena. She's like, I just want to see it from this view.
He says something like, the view I want to see is you on your knees.
Can't remember. All I know is that she gets on the knees.
And he says,
spit on it.
Spit on it. And she's like, I would, but my whole mouth just went totally dry. And he's like, open your mouth, I'll fix that.
My God. He can do it dirty. He can do it sweet. He can do it filthy. He can do it rough.
Man.
Then he can treat you like porcelain. He can treat you like a slut and then turn around and treat you like a queen.
Okay. That scene had me like...
I'm ragging, and so I'm very disappointed that nothing could happen.
I'm not. Skylar writes her song. She records it. Emmy comes in because, so Skylar's sleeping in bed with Wes. She's sneaking in there at night, and Emmy comes in one night because she's had a bad dream. And Skylar's like, oh my God. She's like freaking out. She's like, I gotta go. And Emmy's like, no, you should stay. You had a bad dream too.
You must have had a bad dream too.
Daddy makes bad dreams better.
Yeah,
or something
Daddy
like that.
always makes bad dreams better.
And
Wes chuckles.
Is like, yeah, you should stay. So they stay. And they all sleep in the bed together like a little family. It's so sweet. And then the next morning she reads the email that she was nominated for Best Music Award.
My gosh. Can we talk about the songs? If y'all haven't already, get the Audible, if only to be able to hear the songs that are written, because
the Audible sings the songs. There's 2 of them in there. And they're actually both really good. She gets nominated for the Best Music Award. And then
And if you haven't listened to the Audible,
yeah,
for this book alone is worth buying the Audible just to listen to those 2 songs that are in it that is sang. Which the person who narrates for Skylar, her voice is so similar to the one that sings the song. It's very... You could easily see her being the one that sang it, even though it's 2 different people.
I didn't even notice that they were different. So she then decides, like, she's got to go to LA so that she can get her everything in order for the music awards and these records and everything.
She's got a lot of meetings and promoting to do
with her agent and stuff. So she leaves. She goes to LA. But she promises Wes that she'll come back.
It's Cherry.
She even leaves Cherry, and Cherry takes care of Wes. Wes takes care of Cherry while she's gone.
They develop a kinship. Like, Cherry will go onto Wes's shoulder, and she'll do the night checks with him because he said that it got lonely without her there doing night checks with him. So Cherry just, hangs out with him and goes and does the checks with him now. So there's definitely a kinship between
him and Cherry.
Yeah.
So while she's away, they have a little sexy phone
time
conversation, pictures sent in the email. She sends him pictures.
Yes, she sends him multiple pictures of her in sexy lingerie. And her little frisky self, I was like, you go, Skylar.
Right.
He said something about, I miss you being here, and he makes one comment, and she's like, well, what would you do if I was there? And I'm like, okay, we fix to start talking nannies. He's like, what are you wearing?
Check your email and you'll know.
Oh, and then she's like, I knew I should have got a phone with the camera.
I know. Yeah, she gets this like basic flip phone, so she can't check the media.
It's not smartphone or anything.
Yeah. But
so they
have that moment.
Wasn't it sweet that they both fell asleep on each other on the phone and it was still connected in the morning?
When they woke up.
That's sweet.
So Tyler comes home and Wes is so excited, and obviously so is Cherry, because Cherry flies from his shoulder to hers. And
love you.
Yeah, she's like, love you. And then she flies back to Wes, like you. But Skylar's like, oh my God, she's never flown.
He's like, this is the first
I've seen it happen.
This is the first time it's happened.
So they have the moment with Cherry, And then they have a moment themselves. And this is when Wes finally admits to her, I love you.
He doesn't say, I love you.
I miss you so much. It's kind of like, I love you.
And she's like,
kind of? No, it is. And she's like, oh my god.
I love you too!
Okay, how long do you think they've been canoodling at this point?
Couple months. Not very long.
Do you think you can love someone after a couple months?
I think you can lust someone in a couple of months. But I also feel like that's really hard because lust and love sometimes are very close. But their age takes into a factor. Him and his relationship and his, how his world is, single dad and all that stuff. I don't feel like either one of them really could say that they're in love. I feel like they're in strong lust for each other, but I think that lust could easily turn into love. I just don't feel like they know each other fully enough. But they have also had very intimate conversations, and they delve further into their history than most people would have too at this point.
Yeah.
Like, they know more about each other than somebody who would have just been dating for a couple of months.
Right.
So it's iffy to me. I think it could be love, but I think it's very, 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 very strong lust. And within probably another 2 months, it could be love if they stay at this track.
I just felt like, with Wild Love, Rosie and Ford knew each other, like, throughout their childhood, and, like, it was obvious, like, they both had a love for each other. But with, like, Skylar and Wes, like, they just met each other just a few months ago.
So here's my difference between Rosie and Ford, though. Because Rosie and Ford knew each other younger. They didn't know each other as adults. So they would have been the same way to me. Where there was more of living in and finding out how much they truly did love each other way back when. And then falling in lust as adults.
I don't see it that way because I feel like when you're younger, at the age they were at, you can experience love in, like, the most pure form. Like, you just, I don't know. Being in love with someone when you're in high school is different than being in love with someone when you're an adult.
I agree with that sentiment. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think Ford loved Rosie when they were younger. I think Rosie didn't know that she loved Ford. But as an adult, Ford did not know Rosie. Rosie did not know Ford as adults. That's what I was saying. But I think theirs could have probably been quicker to fall in love because they already had a history. Do you feel like it was lust, not love?
I don't know. I have mixed emotions because can you really fall in love with someone that quick? Or is it lust you feel? Or are those the same?
That's what I'm saying. I think it could be, I think in their case, it's a lust that's going to quickly turn into love. But they also don't give a time frame of when this all happened.
At least 3 to 4 weeks have passed.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's maybe more time in there. I'm not sure. Because she spends at least a month in studio recording and stuff. I was just, side note, because I felt like that was another unrealistic thing. But I'm not really sure. Because it's been a long time since we've been there.
I definitely think in their case it was a lust. So at the end of the book, I definitely think that was love. But I don't think they fully know each other enough to say that. Now their chemistry and the way that they get along with each other, that right there tells you that there's going to be a love much quicker. And their honesty with each other is going to be much quicker to fall into love. But at this point, I think it's lust.
While she's gone, they go bowling. And Reese invites them to Tabitha and his wedding, and they're all like, WTF, what's going on?
Well, he comes and he's like, says something about a wedding. He's like, you're a wedding planner. And he's like, no.
This is my wedding.
Yeah. I work in media or something like that. And they're like, huh? They're like, no, this is my wedding.
Yeah. To Tabitha, and they're like,
doesn't Tabitha hate you?
He's like, well, yeah, but we're getting married.
Things can change, I think is what he says, or something like that.
So Wes tells her about Tabitha and Reese getting married, and she's like, so good. She's like, wait, why are they hate each other? I'm so Everybody's confused about this. But after she gets home, it's like the next day, Ford comes over. He's like, I need to talk to just Skylar alone. And so he does. Ford tells her that her naked pictures that she shared with Wes over email got leaked.
And that he would spare no expense to find out who leaked them.
Yeah. So she really goes through it with this.
Which is understandable.
Oh, yeah.
She put herself out there, and like she said, this should have been a thought in my head. This should have been something that I thought about, and I would have any other time.
It being over email makes it that much riskier, because if you send it through a text, I feel like it's harder to get your hands on a text. But her sending it through her email, where possibly your agent has your email address and password, possibly your dad, or they can hack into it. That shit's out there.
See, the text would be more sketchy to me. But either way, I wouldn't do it in her situation. Wes is there trying to reassure her that Ford will find out who did it.
But it still is the fact, like, it's out there. Everybody knows about it.
That's what she said. It's never going to go away. And then she's like, your kids, Ollie, Emmy, your parents are going to see this. And so she's going down a dark hole.
But she tries to, like, believe everything's normal. Like, she can still go out and do things. And she gets Cherry some food. And while she's there, somewhere like that.
Because she sees Bree, and Bree's buying cat food.
And Bree makes some shitty comments to her about, you know, do you love him? And she says yes. And she's like, well, you know, you'll never be good for him.
I kind of felt for Bree in this moment. She said, I know you think I'm the villain, but I love him. And you won't be good enough.
There will always be something. And
he'll never give up his kids for you. He'll never leave. He lives for those kids.
I didn't feel for her because of the nasty things she said to her.
She's definitely nasty. I agree with that. But I also feel for her in the sense that she wanted that relationship with Wes. And I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying, like, I can feel for her in the fact that she's the local girl, but the celebrity city girl
in there.
Got him. She's worked it, you know? So that was my only thing. But her saying that all she'll do is pretty much bring him down. She's never going to be good enough. And I was like, fuck you. Bro.
That was low. And then she's going to say, you know, you could leave and he may not love me as much as he loves you, but I could still make him happy and give him the life he wants. Bitch.
Yes, that was low.
Skylar is just lost for words. She's thinking, you're right. And I'm thinking, punch that bitch in the face.
It's the kids. The kids are going to get you every time. West is one thing, but it's the kids.
So, as she's down in the dumps, Rosie comes to have a conversation with her, and she's like, what do you even love about this? Do you love your job? And she can't come up with a single thing that she loves. She knows that she loves to sing.
She was like,
and that's it. She doesn't like to go on the road.
She's like, what do you like about it?
She has anxiety when performing.
She's like, I know it's not my place to say this, but I don't know if anybody's ever told you. You don't have to do this.
Right.
You can quit.
And she's just like, wow. And at that point, I'm like, okay, cool, she's going to quit, and they're going to live happily ever after.
Yeah, I did too.
No. That is not what happens. She goes home, and when she walks in the door, Wes cringes because she's about to see Ollie's black eye. Because Ollie defended her at school.
Which, it takes her forever, in my opinion, to figure it out. She's like, what happened to your eye? And he's like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And then she's like putting the pieces together, and she's like, did you get hit because of me? And that's when it was like, she made the decision right there.
Yeah.
Because her worst fear came.
She did. The kids got hurt because of her. And then she gives Wes, it's always one last night of great sex. Always. It's always one last night. And you know, when he's like, we have sex all night, she wakes me up.
Because she was distant from him.
Yeah. They had cut all intimacy while she was like upset about with all this. Yeah. And she finally opens the door for him again. They have a great night of mind-blowing sex, it sounded like. And then the next morning, she's awake and ready, sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting on him to wake up.
And he's like, I should have known
"What's
this
wrong?
coming. I should have known it was coming.
Should have seen this coming." From last night, I should have seen this coming. My heart is breaking during this whole conversation. Like, you know,
his internal turmoil,
yes,
and his thoughts,
yes,
broke me.
I wanted to cry, but I was like, "You're not a bitch. Just because you cried in the last 4 books you read, you're not gonna cry in this one. You're not a bitch."
I guess I'm a bitch because I got teary-eyed and I had some tears going down.
I wanted to cry, but I didn't let myself.
When he says, "Nobody picks me," I was like, done. When he said, "Nobody chooses me," I was like, fuck her, West. Come, I will choose you.
Right? I fucking choose you. Sorry, but I would.
I love my husband. This is a fictional character, right? So I can say this.
Exactly. I'd choose you. I would choose you.
That's what got me, though. Because he was like, he sucks down all of his emotion. He's like,
he wants to ask her to stay so bad. He wants to beg her to stay.
But he said he would never ask somebody to choose him. And nobody ever chooses him. So he wasn't surprised. And he was like, I'm not going to make this harder for her. I'm going to suck in my pride, and I'm going to walk her down. I'll help her with her suitcases. And he's like, well, let me put some clothes on, and I'll help you with her bags.
I'm sick sitting here thinking about it.
She fucking leaves.
No, she first of all gives him, pawns
You're right.
The diamond earrings. She pawns the diamond earrings. She says this is a school fund for each of them. Each of the kids. She hands him the paperwork. This is the paperwork for you're going to need this. And she's like, each one of them has a fund and for their education because Ollie is so smart. And then she said, and he's going to take over the world. Then another piece of paper, that's for Ollie's royalties that he'll have for the rest of his life for the song that he helped me write. And she goes, I'm going to get teary now. Right? I have chill bumps. When she said, and remember the good times. Please remember the good times we have. You know, let them remember the good times. And you too. Please don't talk bad about me or something like that. I was like, don't fucking leave. Just don't leave. Don't fucking leave. Problem solved. Don't fucking leave. But she does. Next thing you know, she's doing a talk show. She said that she gave her agent and her dad, whatever, a list of no-ask questions. And he started asking. The woman on there. The woman did. And she looks over at her dad and agent and she was like, did they even fucking give them my questions? Or they did and they were like, ask these. I don't know, you can't tell with them. Fucking devious. Her dad's face gets all red. She tells the talk show host, she's like, fuck you and fuck all this. She walks away and then she fires her dad and she fires her agent. And she walks out. And then she calls Ford. She says, I need a lawyer. I need the best lawyer that money can buy. And he's like, that's great. I'll send you Barbara's number or whatever. And then he says, well, while I have you on the phone, I have some bad news for you. And she said, well, go ahead. And he says, it was your dad and your agent that leaked those photos. And she's like, well, that's good to know because I just fired both of them. Then Ford said, can I tell West? Yeah, he says, can I tell West? And she says, well, sure. How is he? And he's like, fucking terrible. And that makes her sad. But then she's on a warpath at this point, though. Go, girl. About fucking time. Thank God. Stand up for yourself and take your life in your own hands. So Ford goes to talk to West. And he's like, why the fuck are you not fighting for her? You fight for everyone else in your life but yourself. Fight for yourself and fight for her. And he's like, do you mind if I borrow your private jet? And he's like, oh yeah, I already got it fueled up and ready for you. So he gets on that private jet and he takes off. Next thing we know, she's at the award show. And by herself. She's got herself all, dolled up and with that red lipstick. And then she sees West and Ford. And West is there. She hears he looks good in chucks. And Ford's like, well, I'm going to drop him off and I'm going to get the fuck out of here because I hate these things. I'll watch it on the TV from the hotel. I'll watch you win on the TV. I hate these things. Then she wins, which obviously she wins. The speech? She wins. I was about to calling out her dad? Her winning or her parents? Calling out her entire life. Yes. She's like, my whole life has been a lie. My parents have screwed me over, especially my dad and my agent. Her dad is so pissed.
She gets back to the table after the award show, and they're like making
Googly eyes at
Yes.
each other.
and they are starting to get ushered, and they're like, we're good. He's like, do we have to stay? She's like, no, fucking take me home. And then
They go to walk out.
he detours and goes to the table that her dad and agent are at, and then pop right in the face of
Just
her dad.
because her dad tried to grab her.
No, her dad said, that's my girl.
Yeah, but West, when she walks up, her dad tries to grab her arm, and West is like, you don't grab her. But
Oh, okay, so I missed that.
I thought that's how it went. Anyway.
It might have, I don't know.
Anyway, he clocks that mug.
He said, don't you talk to my girl.
And then they walk off, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And she's like, why are you sorry? I hear he knows a really good plastic surgeon. That he does.
The fact that he's like, was this planned? And she said, I already had my plane ticket booked. Take me home.
So he takes her home. So they go back home.
They go on the picnic, on their date.
Oh, they finally
With the
have their
kids.
$10,000 date with
Yeah.
the kids.
He says, I can't believe you're spending your $10,000 date with the kids. Or I didn't expect the date to go like this. And
Yeah.
I thought that was sweet.
But he gives her this big jar of just orange Skittles. So sweet. So sweet. And then they have this talent show. It's a charity thing with Doris. And the kids and her perform the song Wild Eyes. Emmy dances. And Ollie plays the piano. And she sings. And it's so sweet. It's so sweet.
And a year later? Yeah.
A year later, to the day, he takes her to the side of the road where they met. And she's like, am I going to give you roadhead? And he's like, I might take you up on that later, but let's save it. And then he pulls over, and he's like, do you recognize this? And at first she doesn't, and then she's like, oh my God, this is where we met. So they get out, and he proposes.
I wish they would have described the ring.
Same.
I'm like, what does it look like?
Same.
Like, you described the last fucking ring.
And I hope that we get to hear more about them in the next book when it comes out.
Same.
So overall,
Same.
sweet little read. Sweet, straightforward read that I didn't have to think a lot about. So that concludes the podcast for Wild Eye. Next week, we'll be doing The Ritual by Chantel Tessier.
You know we like it dark.
We're getting back into some dark, and I'm so ready for it. I'm so here for it.
Super excited.
I haven't read a whole lot of dark, but the dark I have read I liked, and this is my first dark. I've heard this is rough.
Yeah, I'm worried for the trigger warnings. I'm a little worried, but we're gonna hope for the best and just go with it.
If this is not a book that you want to read, but you want to know what happens, this would be the podcast to watch without reading the book.
True.
We'll be the experiments. We'll let you know if you should read it or not.
True. But happy Valentine's Day to all of you lovely women and men out there. We hope you get everything you want.
Hope you get some dick.
Or pussy. I hope you get yours. Or
I hope you get some.
I hope you get some even if it's from yourself. Get it. Okay? Get that release that you need. Put you some flower petals down. Put you some candlelight on. And, get some exercise.
Have a romance night for yourself.
That's right. You don't need nobody to buy you nothing.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. We hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.